Perfecto.
Okay.
Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is having a great day, and thank you for participating and assisting to our first major donors webinar. My name is Jorge, and I am the Grassroots Fundraising and Communications Director at Peace Brigades International USA. PBI-USA is one of the many PBI country groups that provide support to more than 1,000 human rights defenders across the world, accompanied by our projects. PBI has been providing support to human rights defenders for more than 40 years. Today, we are joined by Naomi Drink from Pbi Honduras, Pbi Honduras Brigadista, Eva Scarfield, member of the Comité of the Pbi Nicaragua / Costa Rica project since its inception, and member of the Comité of the Pbi Honduras project, and Juan C. Peña M., Program Coordinator of Pbi Nicaragua in Costa Rica. During this webinar, we will provide each project the opportunity to give updates on the work that they are doing in the field. We will start with Pbi Honduras, followed by Pbi Nicaragua. Naomi.
Thank you, Jorge, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you and share a bit about the work that we're doing in Honduras. Just to give a bit of a background of PBI's presence in the country. Since the 2009 coup in Honduras, PBI has seen with growing concern the worsening situation of human rights defenders in the country. And in May 2010, PBI received a request from the Honduran Human Rights Platform. And following this request, PBI activated a response protocol and opened the project in 2014. And last year, after 12 years of a government that hit Honduran society, people, and especially human rights defenders extremely hard, left-wing candidate Xiomara Castro won the elections with more than half the votes and a very high participation rate in the elections. And Castro's campaign promised the respect of human rights and recognized the persecution that human rights defenders had experienced during the government of the previous president, Juan Orlando Hernandez, with, for example, Global Witness recognizing Honduras as the most dangerous country in the world to be an environmental defender during this time in government. And there have been very positive messages and changes during the first months of this new government. However, civil society is still waiting for the government to deliver on many promises and to see the full respect of their human rights. And this change in government has also opened up new opportunities for civil society, with social leaders now forming part of government and holding positions of power. And there's been an increase in dialogue between government and organizations. However, organizations have also shown concern for and slight disillusion regarding the lack of visible progress and change that they've seen so far. So to kind of give a bit of an explanation of the work that we do in the field. So as many of you will know, PBI exists to accompany people and organizations who defend human rights and who demand respect for their rights and those of their communities, and who believe in peace and justice for all. In the team here in Honduras, we support their struggles, and we seek international attention to help prevent violence towards them, allowing them to continue their legitimate work, knowing that they are supported, and hopefully therefore doing that work with less fear. We're currently a team of 7 people from 6 different countries. I'm from the UK, and we're based in the capital city of Tegucigalpa, and from here we monitor the human rights situation across the country and also travel to other regions at the request of organizations. Our work can be kind of divided into 4 main areas and elements. The first is physical presence. So we accompany people, communities, organizations in their activities defending human rights, always at their request. This accompaniment may be in hearings, protests, meetings. A recent example of physical presence that we've had was during the Pbi case, so the imprisonment of 7 environmental defenders, and we were present in all the hearings for those 7 defenders up until they were released in February. And that's a situation that we continue to monitor, the situation of the defenders themselves and of their community, as although they've been freed, they're still waiting for kind of a letter that gives them definitive and absolute freedom. Another element of our work is advocacy, and we meet with authorities at local, regional, international levels to hear from them about the progress on human rights and to promote the protection of human rights defenders' work. Recently, we met with the human rights attaché of the US Embassy in Honduras as part of our analysis of the current panorama, and to also hear about the commitments of the US in regards to the current Honduran context, particularly the change of government, and also to share cases we're following, cases they're following. We also, part of our work is external communication, so we gather information on the ground and use this to analyse the Honduran context in relation to human rights, creating reports, newsletters, other publications to raise awareness of this context, and in particular the situation of human rights defenders in the country. An example of this is soon we'll be publishing a report on the first 100 days of Xiomara's government. And the final element of our work is capacity building, capacity strengthening, in which we offer comprehensive support to organisations, individuals, communities, with the aim of contributing to strengthening their capacity to analyse risks, create safety emergency plans, access psychosocial support, and also develop advocacy and digital security. In the past couple of weeks, we carried out workshops for the Access to Justice Roundtable for the LGBTQI+ community in Honduras, which is made up of LGBTQI organisations from across the country. So that's the kind of the areas of our work and what we do. And we are currently accompanying 7 human rights organisations that can be split under 3 main areas. The first is freedom of expression, then there's land, territory and environment, and then finally LGBTQI+ rights. And for freedom of expression, we accompany one organisation, which is called Asopodeu, and their director, Dina Mesa, who is a journalist and defender of freedom of expression, who founded an online newspaper, which is called Pasos de Animal Grande, through which he gives visibility to current human rights issues and violations and cases. And Asopodeu defend threatened journalists, social leaders, and students persecuted for their defense of human rights. We accompany 4 organizations that work around themes of land, territory, and environment. One is Asopodeu, which works in the Department of Santa Barbara, and they defend communities' rights in the face of the construction of a hydroelectric dam in the region, and continue to struggle for the respect of their environmental rights. There's CEPRODEC, which is the Honduran Center for the Promotion for Community Development, which seeks to promote food and land sovereignty for families living in rural areas of Honduras. And they travel across various regions of the country, offering technical and legal advice to small-scale farming and indigenous communities, and also facilitate organizational training and protection processes. And these are some of the processes that we regularly accompany them in. There's also the National Union of Rural Workers, CNTC, which is a small-scale farming and trade union. And its main aim and main struggle is for the fair distribution of land, and it supports affiliated families in accessing land and resources so they can carry out productive activities. And they also conduct research, monitor legal cases, land legalization processes, and things like that. And then the final one for that theme of land, environment, and territory is Pbi, which is kind of the most internationally known organization we accompany, which is a Lenca indigenous organization that promotes the protection of territories and the recognition of political, economic, social, and cultural rights of indigenous peoples in Honduras. And following the assassination of the leader Berta Cáceres, they've continued to experience constant violations of their rights and threats, and are currently working on the recognition of their communal lands. And the final two organizations we accompany are organizations that work on LGBTQI+ rights. One is Arcoiris, which is committed to empowering the community in Honduras, offering comprehensive health information and defending and promoting the human rights of sexual diversity. And they provide legal accompaniment in cases of human rights violations, organize events and training, coordinate regional campaigns, and advocate for the approval of more fair laws regarding the rights of the LGBTQI+ community in Honduras. This year, Arcoiris is actively working with other organizations to promote a number of changes in laws in Honduras, such as reforms to the penal code, the ability to change one's name on their identity cards, particularly for trans people, and more fair labour inclusion policies for the community. And the final organisation is the one we most recently started to accompany this year, which is called Somos CDC, another organisation that works on LGBTQI+ rights. And it was founded by a group of young people seeking to promote social equity and the full exercise of human sexuality. And they are currently developing programs and projects in defense of the rights of their community. And their kind of work plan includes proposals for laws, outreach programs, legal advice, and workshops for institutional and economic strengthening for the community. And those are the kind of 7 organizations that we primarily accompany, but we also provide accompaniment to other organizations. We have other kind of, we call them close organizations that we maintain relationships with and monitor their situation. And these include women's organizations. We also monitor cases, as I mentioned before, the Guapinol case. And at the moment, we're also accompanying the implementation of the amnesty law, which is a law which is being applied to social leaders and students who were prosecuted under the previous government for participating in demonstrations amongst other people that that law is being applied to. So that's kind of a bit of a summary of what we do and some of the processes we're following at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Naomi. Now we'll go next with the Pbi Nicaragua team. Whoever wants to join first, please go ahead.
Well, we were thinking I would start and Juan will take the latter part. So now, first of all, this is a very different project. So I'd like to give a few ideas about what's different about it for a start. First of all, we might say, why Nicaragua and why just now? What's happening in Nicaragua? Unfortunately, Nicaragua is no longer the Nicaragua of the 80s. Perhaps some of you present, though actually our present company are all fairly young, so perhaps none of you do, but myself and older people, we remember Nicaragua as a Nicaragua that we loved in the 80s, that was a shining light, a good example. As we said, that as far as America was concerned, it was the threat of a good example. It was the model of a government struggling to bring a better life to its people. Alas, that's not the case anymore. Now, our project is not a project about refugees, but it's a project about Nicaraguan human rights defenders who are outside Nicaragua. And this is because it's impossible under the present conditions for an international organization to work inside Nicaragua. As a matter of fact, all the international organizations have now been expelled from Nicaragua, or conditions made impossible for them to work. In last year, most of them were expelled, and this year, the remaining ones that were ones mainly connected with the Catholic Church, who had more tolerance for a while, have also been expelled. Now, it's a project different from the other PBI projects, such as what Naomi has just been explaining to us, the project of Honduras, which is really the pattern of the main PBI projects, especially the Latin American ones. It's different in many ways, beginning with its name, Nicaragua/Costa Rica, which indicates that it's a project about one country, but working from another one. Another thing that's different is that it's a project with a time limit. Initially 2 years, now with a second phase of another 2 years. Another thing, it doesn't have a team of volunteers in Costa Rica, much less in Nicaragua, unlike what Naomi's just been explaining to us is the case in Honduras, and is also the case in all the other Latin American projects. Instead, it has three staff people on the ground in Costa Rica, sorry. And the accompaniment in this project has a different meaning. Here in this project, we accompany only through capacity development, through workshops, meetings, strengthening networks, etc. And this makes sense, as you can see, because as the work is being done in Costa Rica with people who are in exile there, it makes sense that there isn't actually no need for the kind of security accompaniment, which Naomi was explaining to us takes place in Honduras, because the people, once they're in Costa Rica, they're not in any danger. Actually, they're quite safe, but they need accompaniment in these other respects. Now, how did it all start, and why now? There had been anxiety in Nicaragua for some time back over the concentration of power, over authoritarian tendencies, corruption, giving business contracts, and also government jobs to relatives. It was becoming not so much a government as a family business belonging to the presidential couple, Daniel Ortega as president, and his wife, Rosario Murillo, as vice president. Now you can see for a start that that's a highly unusual situation, to have the president and the vice president being husband and wife. Now, when did it start? Basically, apart from these background anxieties and things not going so well, in April 2018, strong opposition and violent repression against that opposition broke out. It started with two events: a change to the system of social security, which would have reduced pensions, and also serious forest fires in the Indio Maíz Biological Reserve, which the government seemed not to have taken seriously and not have taken sufficient measures to deal with. The students, the young people, came out to protest in defense of the aged pensioners and of the environment. The repression was violent. This cycle of opposition and repression continued for a number of months, during which over 300 people were killed. Now that's quite a lot to be killed in that kind of civil strife. We're not talking about a civil war or anything like that. Eventually, after some months, the most violent phase died down, but it settled into a phase of increasing political repression, which is what has continued and has become worse right up to the present. It was in 2018, after this first violence stage started, that PBI began to receive petitions from organizations and from individuals. So in 2018, we formed a working group. Then visits were organized, visits to investigate. And these were carried out by people with knowledge and experience of Nicaragua, who verified that conditions did not exist for PBI to be able to work in Nicaragua, but that positive work could be done with the exiled population in Costa Rica. So the project Nicaragua/Costa Rica was established, and its characteristics in its first phase were focus on the return to Nicaragua, which at that time everyone thought would happen soon, and preparation for this through developing relevant skills. Then work with groups and individuals who were trying to rebuild their organizations in exile or to organize themselves for the first time. Groups and individuals who felt themselves very disoriented and very having great difficulty to come to terms with the exile and with the difficulties of organizing themselves. And psychosocial attention given to groups and people who were very traumatized by what they had lived through in Nicaragua and now the experience of being in exile. The General Assembly of PBI in 2021 authorized that, because the first phase of 2 years was coming to an end, authorized for a second phase, also of 2 years to begin. And that is the phase that we're working on at the moment. And this was justified since the situation of repression, political repression at this time in Nicaragua had not improved. Also at this time, we contracted a very distinguished and capable person to carry out an external valuation, which gave us pointers on future strategy. Now, I think at this point, I'll invite Juan to talk a bit about this new second phase of the project and what it's doing and what it's planning to do.
Muchas gracias, Seba. Mi nombre es Juan Carlos. Estoy trabajando actualmente en el terreno, en el proyecto
Perdón,
PBI
Juan Carlos.
Nicaragua.
Da una frase y después yo hago la traducción.
Una presentación, entonces. Hago parte del equipo de terreno que está en este momento en Costa Rica trabajando PBI Nicaragua.
Juan is part of the field project in Costa Rica that is working with the issues in Nicaragua.
En este momento, como Eva nos comentaba, estamos trabajando en una nueva estrategia a partir del panorama que tenemos o el contexto actual.
Right now, they're working in a new project on, in a new project with given the new context of Nicaragua?
Principalmente uno de los cambios que que ha enfocado el cambio de estrategia tiene que ver con lo sucedido en las elecciones y pues la victoria que se da por parte del orteguismo Murillo en el poder.
One of the issues, given this new context is because of the election with Ortega, and they're working to address these things.
Y fundamental es justamente que el retorno que se planteaba en el 2018, luego del 2018, pues ahora es imposible.
Given that the change within the administration from the 2018, the changes have been impossible to go back to, those changes have been impossible to go back to return.
En ese sentido, también queremos comentarles un poco cuál es el contexto que se da ahora para finalmente mostrarles la propuesta de trabajo que se está desarrollando para estos 2 años que tenemos.
So right now they're working to demonstrate this and work with these issues within the next 2 years.
Por un lado, dentro del contexto, es importante resaltar que la ONU ya generó el mecanismo o creó el mecanismo de rendición de cuentas, cuyas funciones principales es el esclarecimiento de los hechos sucedidos desde el 2018 bajo unas investigaciones exhaustivas.
The United Nations has already created a mechanism to address this based on exhaustive sorry, ¿puedes repetir la última frase, bro?
El esclarecimiento de los hechos y de las investigaciones exhaustivas que den resultados con lo que ha sucedido.
Based on the exhaustive work, exhaustive work to address the issues that are ongoing.
Un hecho interesante que está llamando la atención, que terminó con la salida del país, de Nicaragua, como parte de la OEA, es pues que su representante, en medio de uno de los encuentros, decide renunciar, mostrando un poco el agotamiento de la gente que está alrededor del orteguismo.
One of the important things that's happened is that one of the persons involved in this investigation has renounced, has resigned, showing the exhaustion that this work has created,
Igualmente, existe preocupación, como lo decía Eva, por el cierre de diferentes organizaciones. En los 2 últimos meses hemos tenido el cierre de 50 organizaciones de la sociedad civil, en las últimas enfocadas a perseguir a la Iglesia Católica.
One of the things that's more worrisome is the closure of civil society organizations. There's been more than 50 civil society organizations that have been closed that were persecuting the Catholic Church.
Finalmente queremos resaltar una de las cosas que nos ha parecido ahora más importante y es de las expresiones que se están llevando a cabo y es justamente la delicada situación de los presos políticos y las presas políticas en Nicaragua.
Right now, they want to highlight one of the important issues that is the arrest of civil society leaders and civil society leaders in Nicaragua.
A este momento son 182 que se cuentan, se ha documentado problemas de salud, se encuentran aún algunos en aislamiento e inclusive con problemas por malos tratos y con un alto porcentaje de presos y presas políticas dentro del rango de la tercera edad.
Continuing what Juan has mentioned is that 182 civil leaders have been arrested, and it's really worrisome, particularly given that there's health issues, and some of them are of the third, elder, and they're in isolation and conditions that really jeopardizes their health.
El caso más emblemático y que también queremos poner en conocimiento es lo que pasó con el líder Hugo Torres Jiménez. Él es justamente un partidario de Ortega y quien en los tiempos de la Nicaragua antigua en la guerrilla le salvó la vida a Ortega y murió en prisión.
Following what he said, one of the leaders is Juan, ¿cómo se llama?
Hugo Torres Jiménez.
Hugo Torres Jiménez, who was actually saved Ortega's life, and he actually died in prison.
Bajo este panorama, pues justamente la preocupación se está enfocando es en qué va a suceder al interior de Nicaragua y cómo el exilio en Costa Rica puede ser apoyado para el trabajo y desarrollo en la transformación de sociopolítica de Nicaragua a su interior.
Given this context, what they're looking at is how the exile from these social leaders, what is worrisome of how they're going to be implemented in the return to Nicaragua ¿cuál fue la última cosa que mencionaste?
El trabajo, una de las cosas que se quiere, que se desea es el apoyo justamente al trabajo que hacen los exiliados en Costa Rica con miras a la transformación en Nicaragua.
So they're looking at the work that these exiled social leaders are doing and how it can be translated into going back to Nicaragua and improving civil society there.
En ese sentido, el proyecto tiene dos enfoques principales que queremos resaltar y es uno, justamente, seguir acompañando, fortaleciendo las organizaciones que trabajan por los derechos humanos en Nicaragua, que están exiliadas en Costa Rica, pero que puedan estar trabajando y aportando en la transformación al interior de Nicaragua.
So they're looking at strengthening civil society organizations that have been exiled from Nicaragua into Costa Rica and how they can support that return into the Nicaragua and strengthen civil society over there.
Y es justamente estos espacios que agradecemos porque nuestra segunda línea también tiene que ver con el trabajo en apoyo, en incidencia y comunicación para que las organizaciones tengan la posibilidad tanto de visibilizar lo que está sucediendo en Nicaragua, como poder tejer unas redes que les permita apoyar el trabajo que están haciendo.
They're focusing on advocacy and communications and how that can be translated into supporting and strengthening civil society in Nicaragua.
No sería más. Muchísimas gracias. Preguntas que tengan.
Thank you very much. And if there's any questions, feel free to ask them. So at this point, if there's any questions or any comments that anyone needs to make, please feel free to share them in the chat, or you can send them to me in an email. And just as a reminder too, we do have another session next week, next Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And I would like to take a moment to thank all the attendees and speakers. You guys are great. And remind also, to really encourage everyone to attend the next session. I believe it's May 28th, correct? Give me an answer. May 21st. And this will be at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And thank you very much. And again, if there's any questions or any comments, feel free to share them in the chat or send them to me via email. Have a great day, everyone. And thank you very much. We'll give a couple minutes if there's any questions, and then we'll close out the webinar.
Questions that we can ask right here. Would that be all right?
Absolutely.
Firstly, about Honduras, I would just like to ask, I would just like to thank Naomi for a very good and a very thorough exposition that she gave us, explanation of everything. I'd just like to ask her, would she like to comment also on in the line of communications on the work that they do with the social media?
Yeah, thank you, Eva. When I saw it was you, I thought, oh no, Eva could do a better explanation of PBI Honduras than I can. But Thank you so much. Yeah, so with communications, we have, as well as the team in Honduras, we also have kind of a, someone who is responsible for communications and advocacy. And we are very active on social media, and we post about accompaniments we're doing, cases we're following, sharing publications from organizations, information on current Honduran context. And we're on especially Facebook and Twitter. So you can search PBI Honduras and find us there and follow what we're doing. Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Eva.
And just one other thing, Naomi, would you like to comment a little bit more on the situation of the sexual diversity groups? In particular, I've been always struck in Honduras by the horrendous hate crimes that are committed, in particular against trans people.
Yeah, of course. So Honduras has a horrible history and present of hate crimes against LGBT people, and as Eva said, especially against trans women. So far this year, there have been at least 10 murders of LGBT people in Honduras, and that is not a reduction from the previous year. So I think that kind of shows that even though there's been this change in government, there is still very much a real presence of LGBT phobia in Honduras and impunity in cases of hate crimes. Recently, which was a couple of days ago, we were accompanying Advocacy in an event for Vicky Hernandez, who is a trans woman who was murdered by police during the previous government. And during this event, the Honduran government recognized the responsibility of the state in her murder, and has promised certain the implementation of certain policies and the improvement of respect for the rights of LGBT people in the country. But there is definitely still a sense among the organizations that we accompany that there is still a lot of work to be done. And they have a lot of hope that, for example, there'll be marriage equality, the ability to change their names on their identification cards, access to jobs, less impunity in cases of hate crimes and discrimination in the workplace. But there is definitely a lot more work to be done, and hate crimes against the community are continue to happen without much change. So yeah, thank you, Eva.
Well, it's great to hear that there is some hope, and that there is some hope of improvement, and let's hope that that really happens.
Absolutely.
And about, what was I going to say about Nicaragua? There was something I was going to ask. Oh dear, I've lost it. Never mind.
Well, unless there's any other questions or comments, I guess we will close this webinar. Thank you very much, everyone. And again, please, I would highly encourage you to attend next week's webinar, May 21st at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks. I would like to take a moment to also thank Naomi, Eva, and Juan for an amazing job, and for, their dedication and passion for human rights. I know it's tough work, but, you guys put a lot of hope into what can be done and what's the future can hold. So thank you very much again, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, Jorge.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias.